Hi guys, so the focus of this video is the Mage path for the Raiders of Dune Sea, which is the first of the Sands of Time trilogy. I'm going to be doing a separate video on the sequel, Wrath of Ragnarok, because there's just so much to talk about with this, so splitting them up just made complete logical sense. I highly recommend, if you're a Mage player or prospective Mage player, viewing the whole of this video to get a complete overview of the Mage path in Raiders of Dune Sea. However, I will be leaving timestamps in the description below, which will allow you to fast travel to the bits that might be most relevant to you, or the bits you just want to re-review. So let's start with base mechanics. So what makes the Mage special in this particular trilogy? Well, when I came to write Raiders of Dune Sea, I pretty much went back to the drawing board with all of the different paths, stroke classes, to try and improve them and to make them feel even more different and unique to play. So the Mage kind of receives in this book two pretty big changes. The first is that the Mage has a new mechanic, which is spending magic points. So what this means is that quite a few of the powerful abilities that a Mage will have access to, they will have to spend magic in order to use them in combat. So if an ability asks you to spend 2 magic, then you would lower your magic score by 2 for the duration of the combat. Now, what's interesting is that you'll discover other abilities that allow you to regain magic, which obviously you will want to do, because if you're obviously using all these powerful abilities, your magic score is going down and down. You're essentially getting weaker and weaker and weaker when it comes to your regular damage. So you really want to balance some of those spenders with the abilities that will allow you to restore. So it becomes a careful balancing act, a sort of risk-reward mechanic, which is part of the challenge and part of the fun of playing Mage in Raiders of Dune Sea. Now, the second big addition is the minions. So these are elementals that you can acquire and then summon at the start of a battle. Basically, they're the Mage version of pets. These will have their own sort of health pool and abilities, and they can essentially be used to buff your abilities and your damage, and they also offer other types of utility support. So in Raiders of Dune Sea, each path, rogue, warrior, mage, comes with a core ability now. So when you actually learn that path, or when you finally train in it, you get an immediate core ability that kind of defines that class. So for Mage, it's Augment. So right off the bat, Augment is a spender ability, and you can use it to boost your damage score by taking a hit in your overall magic. It's great early combat ability, probably a good one to use later on in combat. Certainly at the start of your adventure, because you'll have very limited ways of actually restoring that magic that you've spent. But that will change quite dramatically as you progress. So, stats-wise, speed, as always, kind of your primary attribute to keep on par with the monsters and adversaries you'll be fighting. Then obviously magic is the one that you want to be ramping up as high as you can, basically. That's your not only your kind of damage output, but particularly if you're going to be going into a build that spends a lot of magic, then obviously you want to have as much magic as you can. Now, also important to mention that a lot of mage items in this book have armor, and it's probably worth taking some. You can probably quite easily achieve an armor of around sort of 4 to 6 without sacrificing too much damage. Primarily because you have a lot of healing abilities to kind of compensate for that, for the reduction in your sort of damage. So you could absolutely build a kind of arcane warrior build and sort of split your item choices across armor and magic. In terms of health, a kind of mid-range character, you start obviously with 30 health. When you learn the mage career, you go up to 40 health, which is a pretty decent health pool. And by the time you end Raiders of Dune Sea, you will have reached 50 health, which is pretty good. Rogues will be very jealous. In terms of playstyle, you'll tend to find that the mage sits between warrior and rogue. So the mage plays well against multiple opponents, has a lot of abilities that do spread damage with their spells and passives, but lacks that kind of high variable damage that warriors can put out. So mages tend to be more kind of, they chip away at health when it comes to multiple opponents rather than decimate. The mage can also, single target focus, but again, it kind of lacks the burst damage that you're going to get from a rogue. But, to compensate for that, the mage has more survivability with its heals, armor boosting spells, and various other abilities that help a mage to control the battlefield. Therefore, I think I would kind of envisage the mage as a sort of jack of all trades. It's kind of a middle of the road kind of class to play, which can make this path kind of incredibly sort of fun and versatile to play. But it's also, can be quite challenging to get the right mix of abilities in order to keep up with your warrior and rogue buddies. So I'm going to start going into key abilities and potential builds. I'm going to give a mild spoiler warning here that I am going to be talking about the mage careers in the book and the minions that you can acquire, because I can't really talk about abilities without giving it that kind of context. If you want to go in blind to the book, you might want to click off now, but I'm hopefully not going to give away too much. So really what I'm going to be looking at is pools of abilities and giving you some guidance on where you might want to specialise your hero or cherry pick abilities from different areas to build, either a more balanced build or the kind of hero that, is your personal fantasy and you want to play. So let's start with general abilities. So these are always abilities that are great to have. They offer you survivability and versatility and damage, and I always recommend, if you see them, grab them if you can. They're not essentially crucial, but I kind of feel like they're good for an all-round build. So, Fire Aura. Grab it if you can. This is probably the one that I would say is really good. It's passive damage to all enemies. It's lovely. It's lovely. We want it. We want it. Fortress is great for absorbing damage, and it also because it improves your armor, but it also deals damage back, which is a great versatile ability. The rest, we're moving into speed and modifier abilities, which are, as we know, always super useful. Bone Shaker is a great early ability which allows you to reroll your opponent's speed dice. Abilities like Curse are great, which will reduce the speed die, and there are other variations of that, such as Webbed and Shackled, which perform the same effect. And then we come to my favourite ability, Sixth Sense. This ability is broken, and you'll want to have it. Whatever your path or your build, it's just like in all of my playtesting, I just loved this ability and probably got me out of so many scrapes I can't even tell you. Even better, this ability gets handed to you for free on a ring in the prologue with the Timekeeper ring. What I would say to you is keep that ring and just buff the hell out of it whenever you get the chance by adding glyphs and runes. If you decide that you want to swap something else in, then once you get the vault, put the Timekeeper ring in there, keep it in there until you can get it out and buff it again. Sixth Sense, in my opinion, is just too good. Too good. And there is also a piece of headgear that is usable by Mage called the Optical Booster, which comes Act 2 and has Sixth Sense on it. So if you wanted to have another option of having Sixth Sense, then keep an eye out for that one. No pun intended. Finally, I'm just going to give a shout out to Charm. We all know it's a great ability. Get to reroll one of your hero's dice. It's great to have one or two of these. And in Raiders of Dune Sea, it's usually found as a secondary ability on an item. So you're not really giving up an item slot just for Charm. So if you see it, it really is, again, like Sixth Sense. It's just one of those abilities that can just change the whole course of a battle, actually. Right. So we're going to shoot off into looking at key builds. So the first one we're going to look at is the healer stroke passive build. As this name suggests, you basically annoy and frustrate your opponents by healing back the damage that you're taking whilst dishing out damage back to them, but also you're slamming them each turn, each round with passive damage. What's kind of good about this build is that, the healing that you get from this, it just gives you that extra survivability so that you can get off your passive abilities and get them into play, because often with some of these passive abilities you have to kind of forego a combat round to cast them. So obviously heal and regrowth are the staples of this build. You can grab multiples of these, and I'm pretty sure there is a kind of glyph or rune that will add heal to an item, so you shouldn't have any problems having potentially even 2 or 3 of those. Also, you can supplement them with Leech Strike and Life Charge, which are both abilities that will help you to top up your health. And then what we want to do is to couple those with abilities like Dark Mending and Wrath, both of which are passives and cause damage whenever you restore health, which is good. Now let's get into the juicy bit of passives. Now, I've already mentioned Fire Aura as a general ability you just want to grab. We love it, it's great. But now we have the joyous introduction of Poison Cloud. This is your go-to passive damage dealer in Raiders of Dune Sea. Highly recommend it. And we kind of want to back this up with Searing Geyser, which is a ability that comes with the Diviner career. So, as you can guess, for this build, the Diviner career is the obvious choice, because not only do they have that passive damage ability, but they also have a passive heal ability, which is called Healing Spring, which again is just boosting that survivability. As I've said, they can be costly to get into play, but you know it's worth it once these are ticking away at the end of each combat round. If you've ever played Warlock in World of Warcraft, you'll have a pretty good idea of how this class plays. Minion-wise, well, you have a choice of two options, but the one that I'm going to recommend is Lightning Spark. It's the perfect chef's kiss for this build because it adds just even more passive damage to the mix. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. Gloom Shade is also a good backup choice because it buffs your Poison Cloud. It allows it to target 3 opponents instead of 2. But if I think the Lightning Spark has the edge because it's a blanket passive damage across the board. Okay, our next main build is the Spender Mage, who specialises in the main mage mechanic of spending and restoring magic. Here, the two key abilities you absolutely want to have are Fists of the Tempest and Winds of Fate, which are both conveniently career abilities for the Aeronaut. So, as you can imagine, I'm going to recommend the Aeronaut as the absolute career choice for this particular path. So, yeah, and Winds of Fate is powerful because on a roll of a 5 or a 6, you can cast a Spender ability completely for free without losing any magic. Crazy. What on earth was I thinking? Anyway, let's get into damage. Fist of the Tempest. Great ability because you get to lower multiple opponents' armor, which will pay off across a course of a combat because you're doing more damage to each of those opponents. So, and there's obviously you can couple that with other good spender abilities such as Backlash, Slipstream, and Sunstroke. For restoring magic, as I've already mentioned, Winds of Fate will potentially make your spenders free, but you also might want to grab Acuity and Inner Focus, the latter of which you can replace with Innovation once you've further progressed into the adventure, which is just a better version, and it does damage. The best minion for this build is definitely the Gloomshade, which you can throw into aggressive stance, let it tank for you, and each time that takes damage, it will restore a magic point. So grab the energy boost ability, which we'll be talking about soon, increase its armor, slap it out there, happy days, happy days. Talking of energy boost, as I said, let's look at a third build. Now, this one doesn't really reach anywhere near its full potential in this book, but it becomes much more of a key build in the Wrath of Ragnarok. This is your pet summoner build. Also, some of these abilities are quite late game and challenging to acquire, but hey, I just thought this is definitely worth a mention, and yeah, we'll see. So, as the name suggests, this build is about synergizing more with your minions that you summon, either to boost their damage or to boost your own. So, talking of boosting, energy boost is a great... energy boost and evocation are your two kind of mainstays here, because they literally do what I've just said, which is boosting your minions' damage and boosting yours by you adding their magic value to your own. Now, a key ability here also is Resurrection, because this brings back a minion. And this is also great if you have Volatile Link from the Summoner career, which obviously will boost your minion's health. For minion, I would go Fire Sprite. It's great because it has that sort of damage explosion when you sacrifice it. And then you can use Resurrection, bring your Fire Strike back, sacrifice the sucker again. Happy days. Sometimes you just got to be cruel to survive. So, yeah, but as I said, that it's a tricky tricky kind of build to kind of specialize in this particular book, but you'll see how that just starts to fly with some of the options you get in Wrath of Ragnarok. So imagine what we've just looked at as the kind of core or heart of your potential build. So now we can look at how you can layer other abilities on top of that to give you more of a sense of flavour for your mage hero. So we're going to be looking at other abilities available to the mage. We have kind of three main schools of magic that I'm going to be looking at, which are based around a choice of minion who will buff these abilities. So the first school we're going to be looking at is the Fire School. Damage, damage, and more damage. Do you want some damage? We got damage. We love damage. We got Fireball, Immolation, Combustion, Backdraft. All great spells, all damage dealers, and when paired with a Fire Sprite, even better because you do even more damage. We love damage. However, my personal favourite is the Storm School. Now, on paper, it may not seem as impressive as Fire, but it's one of my personal favourites, as I said, because I feel like the abilities have a lot of flavour to them. You're basically turning your mage character into Emperor Palpatine. You're either zapping a bunch of targets or you're going full-on Emperor mode on a single target, and all that lovely armor that your opponents think is going to protect them suddenly becomes basically a lightning rod for all of your spells. So you can just basically fire them off and just watch them slowly cook. The Lightning Spark is, of course, the perfect choice to buff these spells, and probably crucial, really, to unlock their kind of full potential. Finally, there's the Shadow School, which is worth a mention. Certainly, it's the weakest in this particular book, with only really Dark Pact and Poison Cloud playing off the Gloomshade. Mind Flay is mentioned. However, it's not actually in Raiders of Dune Sea. I think I took it out because it was just too broken at the time, and I repurposed it and I put it into Wrath of Ragnarok. So Mind Flay isn't actually accessible. But the key ability here is the wonderful Poison Cloud. It's just a great ability. We've already mentioned it as one of the key passives. It's a real cornerstone of that build. So, the Gloomshade does pair well with that to kind of boost your Poison Cloud ability. Okay, so we've talked about abilities and builds. I'm going to be moving into talking about factions and just giving some general advice on choices. This is moving into spoiler territory, so I'll leave it up to you if you want to carry on, or I won't be offended if you switch off. Okay, so we're going to talk factions now. Obviously, your story choices are going to impact what factions you end up allying with in the book. So I'm talking about these factions largely because there's going to be some people that want to min-max their characters. And yeah, so you do have that option, but also it might just give you some hints and tips if you end up discovering that, oh, well, I'm part of this faction now. How does this benefit me? So I'll just go through it. So in Act 1, you can side with either the Dryads or the Himba tribe. Fire is very much a focus of the early game. Either faction will bag you some pretty nice fire spells, and either faction will get you the Fire Sprite minion. I believe you probably get it quicker when you go the Dryad route, but Himba tribe probably have the edge as fire is their primary element, and their quartermaster has a lot of fire items and has the lovely Cloak of Embers, which has fire aura, and you really, really want that. It's a great item, but you'll have to max out your reputation in order to get it. Going the Dryad route, it probably gives you a more varied selection of choices, and their quartermaster offers an item with innovation for your spender mage build, and there's also life charge available for your healer build. So yeah. Act 2, we have a choice of Sundogs or Cabal. Cabal are probably the best choice for mage. They're great at helping you buff the reputation of the merchants in Sival, because you get access to extra artifacts that you can trade for reputation. Therefore, it's a great choice if you want to get that spectacular urn of Dying Embers, which gives you the lovely fireball from the jeweler, or if you want to acquire the Gale Runner boots and the Black Sun headpiece from the Silk Merchant for your spender build. The Cabal Legendary Monster side quest also has some pretty incredible rewards. For Mage, there's the Bright Fire Diadem, which has Recall. Now, Recall allows you to restore a modifier ability. There's not many of these kind of abilities in Raiders of Dune Sea. There's a lot more in Wrath of Ragnarok because it becomes quite key, your ability to restore abilities you have used. Recall's great because I think I mentioned a little ability called Sixth Sense, which is my personal favourite. It's broken. It's fantastic. And basically Recall allows you to restore it once you've used it, so you get to use it twice in a combat. Or you can use you can use Recall to restore a different modifier ability, if you need to. So Recall is great. It's great. Also, that quest will give you access to the Crackling Spire Staff, which is great if you're going the Storm build. It'll help bring your Storm build fully online. It gives you Forked Strike. If you go the Sundogs route, you have more straightforward items from the Quartermaster. Probably nothing significant. But it does give you an opportunity to purchase an item with innovation, which is, always good for your spender mage to restore magic. But their side mission, their legendary monster mission, is pretty good because it also has innovation on a strong left-hand orb item, and you can also acquire charged shot, which is a good extra spender for that build, which I think is on a wand. So there are some good items there. But the thing that I do want to give special mention to is the one thing you really must gear up for and prepare for as a mage is the Temple of the Elements dungeon delve at the end of the book, because there are some absolutely fantastic items for mage there, and your minions. It's where you're going to be grabbing some of those endgame minions, and then you can finally give that poor overworked fire sprite a break. So and also when you're playing through the Temple of the Elements, think very carefully about the paths that you choose to go down, because that will influence the elements that you are experiencing, and obviously the schools of magic that you'll be getting items for. So obviously, if you're thinking about a storm build, you might want to go down that kind of lightning route. So that's it for this kind of game guide. I hope you found this useful. Of course, I will be expanding this with a Wrath of Ragnarok guide, which looks at how these builds evolve and can be further developed with all the crazy items and abilities and other mechanics that come into Wrath of Ragnarok. Because as you know, obviously, at the end of Raiders of Dune Sea, your hero carries through into Wrath of Ragnarok with all of everything they've acquired. So there you go. If you play a mage and have experiences to share, then by all means leave a comment in the description below. Please like and subscribe so I, can continue to push out content such as this. And obviously I'm going to be doing guides for Rogue and Warrior. So thank you very much for listening, and happy adventuring, guys.